Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vert. I'm your host, Ian Kayandra, where I can, give it to you straight. Just talk some basketball, chill, relax. I hope you guys are having a good weekend today. It's just been a crazy one. We have Sundays coming up, and you know what Sunday means? That means another episode of The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary that's been airing on ESPN. And man, I am more than excited for this. It's going to be episodes 3 and 4, and I think that it's going to be even better than episodes 1 and 2. 1 and 2 impressed, but 3 and 4 are gonna show out. And everybody that I've heard speak about the documentary says that it just gets better and better and better all the way through to episode 10, I think it is. And so, hey, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen, because looking at the 90s in basketball outside of the vacuum, we focus so much on today's era, and we argue that today's era is the best era of basketball, which I believe is true, but we kind of forget to look at things outside of that vacuum and look at things for what they are. That Michael Jordan dominated the 90s. Michael Jordan was leaps and bounds the best player in the 90s, and Michael Jordan was a cultural icon of the 90s. And though we kind of talk about those things today, we don't really see them in action and see them affecting things the way that they did when you're in the moment. And I think that's a function of just NBA Twitter and NBA Twitter getting younger, and people are disconnected from the emotional feeling of watching Michael Jordan play, just as much as people are now affected by the emotional feeling of watching Kevin Durant play, or LeBron play, or Giannis play, or any of these kind of younger new age superstars. And that kind of flows into the first point that I wanted to make. NBA Twitter is really toxic, like NBA Twitter is just full of people comparing people, saying, oh, if you put LeBron in this era, or you put Giannis in this era, or you put Michael Jordan in today's era, they wouldn't be as good. And one thing that I realized is we got to stop that. As NBA fans, we really got to stop that. It gets on my last nerve, in fact. I think that we can honor how great somebody was in the era and the tools that they were given for that time period, but why do we compare them? I think back to when Kobe Bryant died in earlier in this year. Everybody was talking about, we're done comparing players. We're just going to honor greatness and respect greatness and enjoy greatness for what it is. And rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. But people have kind of changed that now. In the moment they were so distraught by the death of a basketball icon that they vowed to never make these comparisons again. And then this Michael Jordan documentary has brought the ugly side back to the way that things are on NBA Twitter and the way that things are on these sports feeds. Is that people are constantly looking at one another and saying, this player is not good because this player does this or this player does that. And the one that I've seen the most is this LeBron and Jordan. LeBron is forever linked to Jordan. LeBron wore 23 for a majority of his career. LeBron even said that he believes he's the best player in the world on his More Than an Athlete series on ESPN+. And LeBron himself said that he's chasing the ghost of Michael Jordan. And so LeBron's indelibly linked to Jordan. LeBron's career, even though it is not directly adjacent to Michael Jordan, it's like Jordan is always in the background. And that notion of will LeBron pass Jordan is always playing in the basketball fan's head. And I'm just tired of it, because I'm a LeBron guy. I think that LeBron, in my opinion, is the best basketball player that I've ever seen, but that's because I never saw Jordan. I was born after Michael Jordan's career. I respect Michael Jordan's legacy and greatness and how he moved the game forward, but LeBron's the best basketball player that I've ever seen with my own two eyes, so I'm just going to go off of that. And I can only listen to what former players say about Michael Jordan and the way that they view him and rank him. And in the games that I've seen, instant classics that come on NBA TV, or the games that are found on YouTube, you see what Jordan did. And Jordan used to pick up guys full court, and then on top of that, he used to drop 40. And we can't, as basketball fans, look at that and say, well, he was doing that in an era that sucked. I mean, Jordan was going up against guys. He had to go up against Charles Barkley, Clyde Drexler, Karl Malone, and John Stockton, Gary Payton, and Shawn Kemp. Those are just off the top of my head, too. He had to go up against Hakeem Olajuwon. And, yeah, maybe not position for position. He wasn't going up against great shooting guards every single night, but he was going up against good teams. And so what we have to start doing as basketball fans is stop looking at the whole picture and saying, oh, this right here, if you put LeBron in any era, he'll dominate. Well, yeah, no, that's not even a controversial statement. If you put a Tesla in 1920 and say, let's race a Model T Ford, the Tesla's going to win. That's the way that basketball is. It's linear. It progresses on top of each other. And so that's why I get so frustrated when basketball fans will talk about, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain and all them. They played in a weak era. They wouldn't dominate today. Yeah, you put a Model T Ford from 1920 in a drag race against a Tesla. Who's gonna win that race? That Model T would be shocked to be going 50 miles an hour, but that Model T car was a pioneer. It set the stage for the eventual resurgence of what we know now as a Tesla. The same way Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, George Mikan, and those guys from the 40s, 50s, 60s era of the NBA, they set the table. And then guys after them grew on that. They built on that. And so what the NBA was at its genesis, it was this idea. It was this thing of, can we make basketball marketable? And then you had George Mikan, the first NBA superstar, when the Minneapolis Lakers were winning championships. And when George Mikan retired, he was known as the best player ever. Then came along Bill Russell, and Bill Russell not only won championships, but he was a player coach for half of the championships that he won. He set the stage. Wilt Chamberlain had an 100-point game. Yeah, maybe the competition wasn't what it is today, but he set the stage for what was next. And then after Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell came Kareem of the 70s, and Kareem was just leaps and bounds better than everybody else in the league at that time. And then Kareem kind of bled into the 80s, and the 80s were Magic and Bird, and it set this Lakers-Celtics rivalry. It revitalized that, and they saved the league. And then from Magic and Bird, Michael took that and ran with it, and he pushed the game forward. He pushed the game into a different stratosphere. He made the NBA a global product. And so then after Michael, then comes Kobe and Tim Duncan and these guys. And then on top of Kobe and Tim Duncan, then you have Bron. And Bron has just made the game so much more. LeBron has made people see that these guys just aren't basketball players, that they have chances to be business entities, that they can be moguls, they can be billionaire athletes and use basketball as a platform. So I just get so exhausted, man. NBA fans, like especially more of the casual NBA fans, they'll just say, Bill Russell, he played against nobody. And, if you put Bill Russell in today's era, he won't be anybody. Well, yeah, what do you think's going to happen? He was a 6'9" center. But want to know what? For Bill Russell's era, he knew how to win. He knew how to exact everything he needed out of the team around him. He knew how to push the game from where it was currently at to a different level. And his championships speak for that. He mastered how to win in his era. In the same way Kareem and Oscar Robertson took the Bucks to the finals, and they won a championship in the 70s. And then Kareem went to L.A. because, hey, who doesn't like to live in L.A.? And then in L.A. he wins championships there with Magic Johnson. And think about each era's dynamic. So you put Magic Johnson in today's era, what's going to happen? He's obviously not going to be as Magic, but for the 80s, he was a 6'9" point guard that could handle the ball, was lightning fast, could run the floor, and had vision like no other. And then you think about what Magic did and how he set the stage for guys like LeBron and Ben Simmons and, these big guys that can handle the ball, pass, and create for others. So you have to stop looking at basketball holistically and saying, let's take something from its advancement and put it in its primitive stage and, it would dominate. Yeah, no, of course. But why is it that everything is linear except, and sorry, that's my phone, y'all. But why is it that everything is linear except when it comes to sports? We love to compare eras. We forget that history builds on itself. We forget that history slowly progresses. We forget that, history, it's not stuck in this endless time loop of, whatever. This thing is just stuck in 1985 or 1990. Yeah. You don't have to compare eras. You don't have to compare players. You don't have to say if we put this player in this era under these circumstances, he would succeed. And if you take Bill Russell from the 60s and put him in, the 2015 NBA Finals, he would be a role player. Yes, because that's denying exactly what Bill Russell was. He was a pioneer. He helped move the game forward, and we have to honor those pioneers for what they were. And so now, this is all looping around for me to get to how I now choose to rank players. For so long, I did the customary like 1 through 10, who I think is the best player, and it'd be 1A, 1B, and then you can't choose between who fits at 7 and who fits at 8 and who's at 9 and 10. But I now recognize that players aren't listed at 1 through 10, but they more fall in this tier system. Like tier 1 players to me are guys like LeBron, Michael, Kareem. Those Magic, Bird, or all those guys are tier 1, but it's the guys that are these generational NBA players. They were the creme de la creme. They were the top of their line. They were at one point the best player in the league. And I think that's how you should rank players. And then you have like your tier 2 players, and maybe one day I'll do a podcast where I flesh out all my different tiers. But then you have your tier 2 players that they were great in their prime, and they were almost transcended in their prime, but they weren't as dynamic as maybe a tier 1 player. And then after tier 2, you have tier 3 players, and those more like your fan favorites, the great scorers. They were flashy, they were fun to watch, but maybe they didn't conduce to as much winning. And so like a tier 3 player in my mind would be Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson, he could get buckets, but how many games were you going to win? What was your cap? 2001 is advertised as his best season ever, where he drugged that Philadelphia 76ers team to the finals. And yeah, that's true, but they also had an elite defense, and they had Dikembe Mutombo anchoring in the middle. And I think we kind of look at that out of context, but that's a story for another day. I think that that's the way that we should start looking at players as NBA fans and on NBA Twitter, because I'm so tired. I'm so tired of people butting heads. I don't get how LeBron was dragged into a Michael Jordan documentary. Can't we just watch a Michael Jordan documentary and enjoy it for what it is, and enjoy that Michael Jordan was something for the game that hadn't been there with Magic and Bird. It hadn't been there with Kareem. It hadn't been there with Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West. It wasn't there for those guys. But he had built on what they created, And that's how you should look at it. You shouldn't look at it at anything else. You shouldn't look at it as, well, if you put Michael in today's era, he'll figure out how to shoot the 3 better and he would still be the best player ever. You don't know that. You don't know that. And that argument is a fallacy. And so you got to take it for what it is. Michael was an absolute dog when it came to basketball in the 90s. He was a guy that was a cultural icon, and his imprint on the game is felt today. But he was also a building block for what the players do today. I mean, think of Kobe Bryant's career. Kobe Bryant mimicked Jordan in every single thing he did. LeBron wore 23 because of Jordan. And so Jordan was a building block for what came today. And so what happens is these insecure Jordan fans think Jordan is forgotten, and they're going to be like, oh, y'all forget how good Michael Jordan is. And no, I'm not forgetting how good Michael Jordan is. Michael Jordan was transcendent. Michael Jordan was an icon. Michael Jordan was something magnificent. But he was also a building block for these younger guys to come up and take what he did and then do it better. And so the NBA circle is almost toxic. It's toxic because they want to think that the NBA either peaked in the 90s and then plateaued after that, or they want to say that, you can take players and put them in any era or whatever. And it creates this circular argument that ends up going nowhere, and people just get angry. Why can't we see that the game, just like anything else in history, builds on each other? You have to build the Model T first before you can build a Tesla. Michael Jordan had to come first so that you could have Kobe and LeBron. And then LeBron's going to be here, and then you're going to have LeBron in order for somebody else to come up and be better, And so LeBron did things that now Giannis saw as when he was growing up as a basketball player. And then Giannis is building on what LeBron did with the small forward and power forward position, being able to create, being able to just wreak havoc there. And then Giannis was having one of the best seasons when it came to player efficiency that we've ever seen. And so it's about passing the torch and realizing history builds on itself over anything else. Just like the history books, countries when they're being founded, they have their initial constitution, but the constitution is amended and it's changed and it's dynamic because it has to fit the people at the time. The same way that builds on itself, that goes for sports and basketball, especially, and basketball fans can't seem to get that Bill Russell may not be great if he played today, but what he did for his era was great. So you have to honor that. And Bill Russell set the stage for these other guys to do stuff. A guy that doesn't get much love in NBA circles, Pete Maravich, Pistol Pete. What he did with the basketball in the 70s in terms of being a ball handler, being a flashy scorer, being able to get buckets, that set the stage for guys like Magic and for that type of play to be accepted, because it used to be very cut and dry. You know, you pass, you shoot, you try to get a layup, you work the block, and then Pete Maravich came and started shooting that thing from 40 feet. But people forget about that because want to know what he was? He was a pioneer. And he got into the Hall of Fame for being a pioneer because he dared to do something that nobody else did. So maybe this podcast comes off as a rant today, and I've already talked for 16 minutes about this one topic. But I think that it's due time we start looking at basketball like we look at everything else in history and realize that it's linear, that it's progression, that one era feeds into the next, and what you learn from that past era then is attributed to the players in the current era. Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, those guys walked so that Kareem could run, and then Magic and Bird came and saved the league from folding, and they set the stage for Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan made it a global entity. Then came Kobe and LeBron kept pushing the game forward. And then Giannis is here ready to take the mantle from LeBron. That's the way that it works. It's nothing too out there. It's nothing too crazy. We just have to realize that basketball isn't different from anything else, y'all. We need to stop comparing and start appreciating. We need to start using a tier system instead of ranking 1 through 10, because these players all did something for the game. As always, may the rest of your day be the best of your day. Cheers.